And welcome once more to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, as he always does, is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Bob, great to see you.
Iraq. This is just coming apart at the seams on all fronts. Yeah. Now we have reports that the Syrians have bombed some of the ISIS positions, reports of Iranian troops massing at the border, reports of Iranian drone flights. I mean, could this get worse?
Unfortunately, it could get worse. What you have is certainly Iraq seemingly falling apart politically from a security perspective. You have all the actors in the region that have an interest in what's happening. The Syrian regime, the Iranian regime involved, and now American advisors, American Green Berets on the ground trying to help the Iraqi government survive. But what you have, Bob, is what is seemingly the lack of a political solution here. Maliki not being willing to be inclusive. The Kurds clearly starting to approach independence or some form of greater autonomy. And frankly, an inability to secure the country with ISIS making advances over and over again, taking over the Baiji oil refinery, taking over more territory, threatening around Baghdad. I think part of their strategy is to take more territory and to, with pinprick suicide attacks, really harass in Baghdad. And even threatening to take over the Balad Air Base, which the U.S. relied on so heavily during its occupation of Iraq. And so this is getting worse, and I think folks are wondering, can this onslaught be stopped? And how do you dislodge these terrorists from holding so much territory in Iraq and also Syria? What's left of the Iraqi forces say they need U.S. airstrikes. They've been pretty insistent. They need air power to knock ISIS back. The administration seems to be saying we can't do that short of some kind of political plan in place. Are they really saying Maliki has to go? Almost. I think that part of the reticence to apply force by U.S. forces is not knowing what the end state is. What are we going to be applying force in order to do? I think the short-term answer is, well, you're using force potentially to stop the onslaught of the ISIS marauders, dislodge them from key parts of the country. That's a short-term game. That's a short-term game. But the question ultimately is, okay, what are we there to actually support? And if it's not an inclusive Iraqi government, if this is merely going to lead to further sectarian division and warfare, hey, we maybe don't want to be a part of that. And I think that's what the administration's reticence is about. I think there's a more practical question, though, is do we know what we would be hitting? Because we don't have a footprint on the ground. We're not necessarily going to trust what the Iraqis tell us to hit. And certainly we're going to be worried about collateral damage and also drawing the United States in at a point when we're not quite sure what we're getting pulled into. Now, let me ask you this. How does it change, or does it change the equation that the Syrians now apparently are flying sorties and bombing ISIS positions along the border? Well, this whole thing, and we talked about this on Flashpoints before, is complicated by the fact that this is not just an Iraqi problem. This is a Syrian and Iraq issue because ISIS is a real force in Syria, is a real force obviously in Iraq, and a solution actually has to involve dislodging this group from both of their strongholds in both countries. And the Assad regime and the Maliki regime are in alignment in that regard, and in some ways we are as well, along with the Iranians. And so this all gets very complicated diplomatically and logistically because in many ways we all want ISIS to be constrained. One point though, Bob, the Assad regime over the last year or so has found accommodations with ISIS. They've traded with them. They've engaged in understandings of where their territory is and where the government territory is. And so the Assad regime has played footsie with this organization, as have the Iranians in the past. And so this is all shifting now because of the threat it poses, this group poses to Iraq. We have to leave it there for now. It's a topic obviously we have to revisit. Absolutely. Juan, thanks as always. Thanks, Bob. And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We will see you next time.